Alright, and we should be live. And we are working on Braids again. So we left off on Invasion. So I'm starting a bit later than usual, but I also have a bit of extra time. So theoretically, I don't have to be to work until 4, but I do need to do some other stuff. So we should get about the same amount of time, unfortunately, since I had other stuff to do this morning. Yeah, I really wish Opera Omnia would fix the one bug it's got going on with co-op, because that makes it much harder to farm the resources for the co-op rewards. And alright, so we were on Invasion, and yeah, getting constantly kicked out and having to restart the thing and not getting the actual co-op rewards because I'm not partnered with anybody anymore because I got kicked out of the co-op at the start of it. Yeah, that's been going on for like 3 events now. 3 events, I think. I think it started. No, 4 events started with Luna Freya. Um, so yeah, that's been miserable for that game. You think they would fix that? I guess it's not affecting enough players as a priority, but I'm getting super annoyed with it. So anyway, enough about the game that I was playing that's not the subject of what we're doing. Let's get back to this. So, no. Enters battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life for each vampire we control. No. +1/+1 counter for each creature that died this turn. Don't think so. 5 target creature cards from graveyards, and opponent separates them into 2 piles. Put one of those piles of my choice onto the battlefield under my control, and the rest into their owner's graveyards. We have a lot of high casting cost stuff already. Getting back like 2 to 3 creatures, depending, or like 1 creature that makes a bunch of creatures, because I feel like those are the things we're most likely to grab, depending on what the other comes into play ability or, while it's in play options are, but I don't think so on that one. Undiscard, draw a card, and return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Don't think we need that one either. I might have been able to be talked into this one if it were an instant, like making the treasure tokens and getting rid of one of our opponent's permanents. I probably would have been down for that. But as a sorcery, like, we already have a handful of other creature removal spells that are just going to be hitting creatures. I don't feel like I have room for that one. And we also passed on the one that only makes 1 treasure from Forgotten Realms for the same reason. Gain 3 life, and it's like a 5-drop? No. If you attack with a creature this turn, opponent discards a card. Exile 2 cards from an opponent's graveyard to have it explore. No. Dies makes a treasure isn't quite good enough. The Direfleet Ravager kind of goes in with the life loss on cards like Pox and Praying Omnipotence, but I don't think, without the ability to affect the battlefield at all, I don't think Direfleet. Yeah, I don't think Direfleet is going to make it in there. Gives opponents 2 creatures? No. Not that I'm particularly interested in a card where I have to attack with an equipped creature and have it deal damage in order to get a Lotus Field out of it without eating the 2 lands. Attacks if you control another non-token pirate, you may pay 2 to make a 2/2 menace. Yeah, it's kind of underwhelming. No to that one. Pirate, and then you can get the other creature types from Ixalan. After the creature this turn. Right, it's a sorcery. So no. I'd sell Freebooter, no. No to Lurking Chupacabra. No to these cards. Keep going. No to that. And that, and that. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, make a treasure token. And if we control 10 or more treasures, we win the game. I really kind of wish that Revel in Riches did not have that last line of text. Like, I think it's going to make it into this deck primarily for its first thing, but yeah, I always feel weird because a lot of the decks... Alright. I'll figure it out. I keep forgetting that the core one of these is spelled wrong, and I keep forgetting how to spell Ixalan, so... Revel in Riches. But yeah, after, like, the template document has it spelled wrong, even though I have one of them spelled right and one of them spelled wrong, and I always forget. I'm pretty sure it's Ixalan, not Ixalan, but we'll double check. But yeah, Revel in Riches is one of those cards that I want it for the first part of the text, where I'm getting a resource when my opponent's creatures die. But then I don't want to win with it a lot of the time. Like, I don't build decks where I want to be able to win with this card. I want it in the deck for the first part of it. So it's one of those, like, if it were like 20 treasures, I would probably put in the more casual decks anyway. But at 10 treasures, it feels like it's almost too easy to get to that point. Which then requires somebody to either kill Revel in Riches or blow up all of the artifacts on the table in order to stop me from winning with it, so... But it does do what the deck wants to do, and the deck's a little more competitive with the prison elements to it. Like, this is going to be a deck that when it's winning, it's a lot less fun for the rest of the table anyway. So having a way that just ends the game once everybody else is behind probably isn't that bad. But yeah, it's not how I want to win with this deck, but it's doing enough other stuff that the deck cares about. By, you know, our opponents are losing permanents, we're gaining extra permanents type of thing. So it helps feed the various stacks effects. Create 2 colorless artifact tokens with tap sacrifices. Right. With tap, yeah, I'm starting to read like the actual treasure text. Sacrifice 3 treasures, draw a card. Vampire, you control attacks. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. No to all of these. No. 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 Excuse me. Destroy target lands. Controller loses 2 life. No to that. Thematic Compass lets us search out lands, then if we have too many of them, it transforms. We did already add the Kite, though, and Thematic Compass is a better kite for the effect. Like, the Maze effect is fine, and the Compass is about the same as the Journeyer's Kite, so when we don't need the lands, it's a better kite. When we want to keep getting the lands, it's a worse kite. We'll clear my throat out eventually. Yeah, this is what I was worried about yesterday, and now it's happening today. We also had the treasure map. We're going to be making lots of treasures anyway in order to have things to feed to the stacks effects, so we might as well have ways to draw extra cards with them too. And I think that's better than the pirate from earlier, where you can sack 3 treasures to draw a card. Might be in for Vraska's Contempt because of the exile. Like, it's a lot more expensive than, say, a Swords to Plowshares or whatnot, but we won't have access to that type of thing, so just being able to exile problematic creatures, or the occasional Planeswalker, Like, Planeswalkers getting exiled is less important, depending on what your opponent's recursion effects are, but creatures, there's a lot of them that can just come back that are problems. Ugh. On top of the regular recursion effects that you also have to watch out for, so. It might not make it because we have a handful of exile effects that we're using anyway from the graveyard, so we can usually take care of most of the things that are problems like that. But just in case, we'll at least put it on the list. And then we were at the end with Wanted Scoundrels and Walk the Plank. Yeah. Ixalan. So yeah, I had spelled right for the main set and have it spelled wrong for Rivals, and for me trying to search it because I keep thinking it's spelled the other way. It was Ixalan. Expansion. Journey into Nyx. Sure. Let's see what we've got here. Agent of Erebos. No, 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 no. +1/+0 and lifelink. No. Dictate of Erebos. Almost definitely. This is Journey. Journeyer's Kite. Journey into Nyx. Dictate of Erebos. Yeah. With all of the things that we're sacrificing, if that causes the opponents to lose more creatures so they don't have creatures to feed to their triggers for our stacks effects, and they have to feed them other cards, just makes it more likely that we run them out of resources. I swear I'll stop choking eventually. Maybe. Possibly. Destroy target enchanted creature or enchantment creature. No. 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 Nope. No. No. Do exile target creature and then make a gold token. If we had ways to consistently tap him, that would probably be okay, but since we don't, I think we have to pass on King Makar. Each player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. In the graveyard, put a black. No, no. Yeah, Silence the Believers is another one that I sometimes seriously consider. For its ability to kill 2 creatures, most likely. Maybe 3 if I have a lot of mana lying around and it's an instant. So, we'll at least put it on the list. Toughness equal to number of swamps I control. Not good enough. Nope. Nope. And worse fears. Alright, I'm going to need to pause the video. Well, not pause the video, but I'm going to mute for a minute and I will be back. Just give me one moment. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Needed a moment there. Alright, so that was Journey. Expansion, Judgment. Yeah, I don't know which of the slightly overcosted instant speed removal spells are going to make it into our deck. But the ones that can either get more value or have more targets, like the ones that can, like Hero's Downfall and probably Vraska's Contempt are going to make it in, and then it's going to depend on efficiency and the secondary effects of them, which other ones make it in. All black and all red creatures from their graveyard to play. Do we want Balthor the Defiled? I guess it's going to depend on how many of our black creatures we wind up with in the graveyard. So this is Judgment. Yeah. Balthor the Defiled. Yeah, if we think we're going to have larger numbers of our creatures in the graveyard, combined with our removal package and whatnot, like our graveyard hate, more so than, like, I say removal, but I'm thinking remove from the game, not removal as in kill a creature on board. Like, yeah, our what we have for exiling graveyards and cards in play to stop them from getting into the graveyard in the first place will determine how likely we are to bother with Balthor. Judgment is generally terrible for black, in the same way that Torment is generally good for black, although a lot of the cards in Torment have gone down in power level over the years. So, but at the time, black was just getting like everything in Torment, and so Judgment was the counterbalance to that, where everything's kind of not amazing. Whenever attacks isn't blocked, defending player loses 1 life for each card in their graveyard. Well, we have plenty of cards that don't want them to get cards in their graveyard in the first place, so don't think we need that. Graveyard hate cards, some mediocre spells, the treacherous creatures, yeah. Yeah, none of those. Alright, so that was Judgment. Now into Jumpstart. Which, I'm trying to think. Tiny Bones? Is there anything else that's actually mono black? Like, the Fight Fixer has blue in her ability, and I'm trying to remember what other mono black cards that were unique to this set exist. Because I don't think there... Oh, there's the Witch, where you gain life and it makes other players sacrifice things, so maybe that has potential if we have enough life gain. Burglar Rat's already on the list. So far, nothing. Target player discards a card. Exarch. Wizard Blood. No. Yeah, there's Kells, and she has the hybrid blue, so we can't run her. What was her thing again? Sacrifice a creature, you may pay that. If you do, draw a card, and she can gain indestructible. Yep. Deal 3 damage? No. Dies, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Blackguard, Implant. Phyrexian Tower. Dark Realms, Anglemancer, Scourge, the Score, Sholdred. All of these also. Oh no, that's the other witch. They're very similar because they both have like the excessive number of hands on them, so like I'm pretty sure the other witch, even though she's from Jumpstart, is supposed to be a witch from Eldraine. So if an opponent discards a card this turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So Death Touch, at the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, each opponent sacrifices a creature and return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. I don't know how much life gain we're actually going to have is the issue, so like, we can add her to the list, but if we don't run enough life gain, then she's not going to make it. Or if the effect just doesn't feel powerful enough once we're in that position. So, that was Jumpstart. Kaladesh. So 1/1. Enters the battlefield, move any number of +1/+1 counters. No. Don't think we need the reservoir. Choose a counter on target permanent or player. Give that permanent or player another counter of that kind. Mammoth. B for the Foundry. Run that thing. No. 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 Alright, this one affects all creatures, right? All other creatures get -2/-2, so it would also wipe away ours. So I'm a lot less interested in him than I would be in a deck where I'm just running a bunch of big creatures and I'd run both him and the Massacre Worm. No. 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 Definitely not. Essence Extraction. Familiar. Return target artifact, return target creature. So without access to like green and regrowth effects, I might be more interested in this to get back Fortuitous. Fine, to get back like the smokestack itself if we need to sacrifice it. So, because I'm pretty sure most of blacks return a dead artifact to your hand are artifact creatures, although we might be able to use like Scrap Trawler and Workshop Assistant and Junk Diver to get back dead like artifacts, like regular artifacts. So we might not need Fortuitous Find, but it still kind of wants to go on the list because of that. Like its ability to get back the non-creature artifacts that we might want. Enters the battlefield, top 4 cards. Right, Gonti. Do I actually want Gonti? Gonti's one of those value cards that makes it into a lot of my commander decks, if I have room for him. But he usually gets cut if I'm not benefiting from casting opponent spells or, you know, some other manner of stealing their stuff. Like, if I'm not trying to exile their deck from the game or something, or get benefits from casting their spells, Gonti is usually on the list and gets cut because he's not matching what the deck is doing at that point. What is her trigger again? Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard. So for making tons of treasure tokens, Marionette Master has a very high chance of killing the opponent just by existing on the battlefield. So we'll add her to the list. Also, she's a single creature that makes 3 bodies, so she can very easily go infinite and kill the opponent with Ashnod's Altar and Nim Deathmantle, which is easily one of my favorite combinations of cards to run, is creature token makers that are themselves creatures with Nim Deathmantle and Ashnod's Altar. Like, that just keeps showing up in a lot of the things that I put together. Back in the creaky chair. Order. Midnight Oil. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. Draw cards equal to the converted mana cost of that permanent. Wonder. Life and you gain 1 life. Just Gear Hulk. I mean, I'll at least consider Noxious Gear Hulk. Enters the battlefield under your control. You may return Daredevil from your graveyard to your hand. Nope. Panharmonicon. Maybe. Harmonicon. It depends on how many things we have from artifacts or creatures entering the battlefield, but if we have enough, being able to copy them with Panharmonicon to get like more permanents, so that way we have even more sacrifice fodder, is at least some consideration here. It might not make it. We might not have room for it. We might need more cards that do the thing rather than a card that benefits us from when the cards do the thing. So, we'll have to see. Scrounger, Self-Assembler, Sky Sovereign, good old Smuggler's Copter, Subtle Strike. No to him. No to that. Artifact enters the battlefield. You may pay 1. If you do, opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Destroy target creature only if you control 2 or more artifacts. There's Weaponcraft Enthusiast, who makes 2 bodies if we want him to, which we almost definitely will. Enthusiast. Fast Monitor. Whirler Maker's too expensive for what we're doing. Is there like 1 card on the other page, or are there a handful of them? Workshop Assistant. Well, that is one of the ones that can get back a dead artifact when it dies, so... Did only... 1S the second time. Spelling it like assassin. Okay. Kaladesh. Next up is Kaldheim. And the Kaldheim Commander deck, which probably won't interest us because it's all elf-based. I don't think we're going to have enough mono-black elves to do anything cool with the cards from that. Alright, so there's Blood in the Snow. So choose 1, destroy all creatures, or destroy all planeswalkers. Then return a creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast this spell. So caps out at 6, unless, you know, other effects are raising the cost. So Kaldheim. So if we are going to run the Snowlands, Blood on the Snow is one of the payoff cards for doing that, besides the scrying sheets. Don't care about Bloodline Pretender. Blood Sky Berserker. Burning Rune Demon, no. Flying Trample, pay 3 life. Return it from your graveyard to your hand, only if an Angel or Berserker entered the battlefield under your control this turn. So, no. Was gain 2 life, no. No to Crippling Fear. Crippling Fear, yeah. No to him. No to that. Non-token creature an opponent controls would die. Exile that card with an ice counter on it instead. You may cast spells from among cards in exile your opponents own with ice counters on them. And you may spend mana from snow sources as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Am I interested? Like, I've already added Braids and Leyline for this type of effect. Like, I can add the Draugr, and we can consider him over, say, Braids. I don't know if the Draugr's going to make it in. We might wind up with, like, Voidwalker from Modern Horizons 2 as the other exile effect. I don't think we need all of them, but I'm not sure which one I want to run yet. No to that. No to these. We're not foretelling stuff. Exile 2 cards from your graveyard. If you can't, sacrifice them and draw a card. Your opponent discards a card. Dies, return another target elf from your graveyard to your hand. Flying lifelink, hexproof from planeswalkers. Sacrifice a creature, each opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker. Exile target creature or planeswalker. This 12. +1/+0 menace. +2/+2. Yeah, we don't have enough of any one creature type for Haunting Voyage, so. Second spell, no. No to the Jarl, no to that guy. No to that. Probably don't care about this one. It is fun for the cards that actually care about our other creature types, but I don't think we have enough. Because I'm not picking things that care about creature types for the most part, so. And only being able to make 1 token for 3 mana invested isn't going to cut it for what we're setting up, so. Raven, Renegade Reaper. No. If we were proliferating, being able to suddenly make 8 permanents off of this thing, maybe, but I don't think we're going to proliferate that much, so. So the Dreadmarn. If I do wind up putting proliferate cards in, maybe we'll come back for a replicating ring, but I don't think there's going to be quite enough. There's a battlefield, search your library, hand and graveyard, Shimmering Veil. Another non-elf or berserker dies, you draw a card and lose a life. Some creature types we have. Skull Raid. No lands. No duels. Tegrid. Yeah, Tegrid makes it in. Making players sacrifice things. I keep waiting for Tegrid to get banned from Commander. Because she's just a little bit much when she circumvents casting costs as easily as she does. Like, the from play part, when players sacrifice things, is really strong, but it's not what actually makes her, like, almost ban-worthy. It's the discard part that really does it. So your opponent top decks, something they can't cast for another couple of turns, and you make them discard it, and you get it without having to pay the mana cost on it, just makes games, so hard to deal with when Tegrid's out. And punishes players for doing the things that a lot of players do in Commander, which is run big, expensive spells. So, getting to circumvent the mana cost on all of your opponent's things while getting cards out of their hand usually makes Tegrid a bit too much. The from play on top of that just kind of pushes her over the top, but it's actually the discard from hand being able to circumvent the mana cost that I think makes her really dumb. And there's been rumors that she's going to get banned from Commander. So, in fact, if I'm being perfectly honest, looking at Tegrid and looking at what we're doing, she would make a much better Commander for this deck than Braids. But I want to build Braids, so that's what we're doing. But yeah, you could argue that Tegrid should just be the Commander of a deck like this. Even though if we were building Tegrid, we would want more hand disruption too. Because like I said, I think that's the stronger aspect of Tegrid. So, but we can run her in the 99 and just have what is probably a slightly inferior deck. If we swapped Tegrid for Braids and didn't change any of the other cards and just played a worse Tegrid deck, it might even be stronger with Tegrid in command than it would Braids, which is kind of sad, but unfortunately the things that work with Braids really well tend to work with Tegrid really well, so it's not like we could build a Braids deck that wouldn't be good with Tegrid in the leadership role, but which is kind of disappointing. And another reason, it's not a great reason to ban Tegrid, being the best commander for a particular strategy doesn't mean, that's kind of like saying we should ban Edgar Markov, original commander deck Edgar Markov, because there's no way any red, white, black vampire is ever going to be the commander while he exists in your Vampires Matters deck. But yeah, that is unfortunately how some commanders are. They're just so good at one particular strategy that anybody else as a commander that's kind of using that strategy can probably just be replaced by them and make it a superior deck. So yeah, we could theoretically just swap Tegrid and have both a better Braids deck and a worse Tegrid deck than what Tegrid would normally be able to do, which is kind of sad, but I wanted to build Braids, so we're going to build Braids, and Tegrid just happens to work really well with that, so she's going in anyway. Choose a creature type. Target player draws X cards and loses X life based on the number of cards of that type they control. That player sacrifices a non-elf creature. See, I don't know if I want this one and Anawan the Ruin Sage and Call the Grave, where we're abyssing away specific creature types that our deck... it's kind of like the same thing as the demon that's the 6/6 flyer that kills a non-demon at the end of every turn that a creature died. They all technically work in our deck, and we should be able to make enough stuff that we're never losing anything important. But I don't know that I need all of these random abysses wandering around the table to help our stacks decks out. We do get to, because we will control all of them, we'll put all of our triggers on the stack, so they would have to lose the non-elf and the non-vampire and whatnot before they sacrifice to the smokestack. But I don't know that that's good enough anyway. Again, we're not going to be running enough elves, so the jar's not going to do much. And that's everything. Alright. It's called Heim Commander. as expected, we're not an elf themed deck, so bunch of elf matters cards or creature type like our creature type doesn't even matter, so we can't even use like the one that cares about having a ton of one creature type. That Alright, so we're definitely running a bunch of artifacts. I don't know exactly how many enchantments we're running, but if we have an artifact out, it's Hero's Downfall. If we have an artifact and enchantment out, it's Hero's Downfall for one less, and the fail case is that it's a Hero's Downfall for 4 mana. So, I think we can just scroll down here. Oh, too far. Neon Dynasty and add Assassin's Ink. And that will probably make it into the deck over one of the other similar cards. Excuse me. If you do, choose a non-land card from it and exile that card. Like, getting through should not be a problem with the number of tokens that I keep wanting to add to this deck and token makers. So, getting something through to look at their hand. Like, it's good against combo decks because we can exile the combo piece before they can cast it, in theory. I don't know that I care enough to hose that particular strategy. Like, if I'm playing against brutal combo decks, am I even breaking this deck out? Maybe. Maybe I am. This deck does seem a bit mean and frustrating to play against, so that kind of ups its power level, which in turn makes me more interested in cards that affect other decks based on the, like, I don't want Biting Palm Ninja against, like, more casual crowds. Like, I don't think that's super helpful to exile one card from one player's hand. But against, like, dedicated combo decks that are trying to assemble, like, some 2 or 3 card combo engine that's going to just win the game when it comes together, being able to take a card from that player's hand, especially exiling it, like, even if they don't have the combo piece, if they have a tutor or something that I can get rid of forever to slow them down a bit. And yeah, when you're playing the deck against higher power level decks, you want the cards that interact with the deck better when the opponent's deck is at a higher power level. Like, again, there's no point in putting a Biting Palm Ninja in to wreck somebody's, like, elemental theme deck a lot of the times. Like, yes, you will be able to get, like, a Risen Reef sometimes or something and, stop them from doing all of the cool tricks, but Dockside Chef. This is one that we keep, like, glossing over every time because I'm looking for sacrifice outlets before. For this one, I'm probably running him purely for value. Like, I don't necessarily need him because we're going to be sacrificing things. Like, I don't need a way to sacrifice things. I have plenty of those. It's that I can draw cards off of him from all of my extra tokens, because he also can eat treasure tokens to draw cards, so... The Dokuchi. Don't need Eater of Virtue. Certainly don't need Echo. Enormous Energy Blade. Go Shintai of Cruelty. Can't run Hidetsugu. Affects a target opponent. Sacrifices a creature, and then a planeswalker and an enchantment. I don't think we need Invoke. The fact that it only messes with one player is kind of meh. The upside is we can choose the opponent that only has like one planeswalker or one enchantment that we really care about. Like, it's a lot harder to choose an opponent that only has one creature, although that will come up sometimes. But it's more the ability to pick an opponent that has a problematic planeswalker or enchantment and get that off of the table. Or to choose somebody who can't do the thing, so that way we can draw some cards and they can lose some life, depending on what the situation is. I think we can do better than that for, as far as removal goes. Do we want Junji? Dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control and you lose 2 life. And it's a 5/5 flying menace. Maybe? Like, I'm not super into attacking the opponent's hand, but being able to get back a creature that makes more creatures, same thing that I wanted to do with all the other reanimate things that we've seen so far, but also having the option to make everybody else discard 2 cards and lose 2 life. Like, the second mode is more what we would want from Junji, getting back something like, Weaponcraft Enthusiast and make 3 dudes, so that we have 3 more permanents to work with. Like, that's more likely what we want to be doing. But having the option for players that get low on cards and are looking for something, they either don't have enough lands to cast their big spell, or they're trying to, get more value out of their cards before they Wheel of Fortune or something. Seems a bit better. Like, to have that option alongside the other option, which is the one we're going to be choosing most of the time, is to get back something from a graveyard. Deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, and you gain X life. I don't think we need that. I don't think we need a mirror box for anything. Go to these cards. Deals combat damage to a player. Exile the top card of each player's library until end of turn. You may play one of those cards, and you may cast that spell by paying life equal to its mana cost rather than its actual cost. Don't think we need Nashi for anything. Don't need that or that. For the raid. Unai. 2/1/1 counters. I don't think we need Papercraft Decoy. Bankbuster. When we get the last counter off of it, it makes 2 other permanents. But that's still 3 turns. We do get to draw 3 cards off of it, though. I don't think so, but... Bottom of owner's library, no. 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 Spell creature, planeswalker, return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. Is okay, but... then return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. Maybe? Maybe Takamune? Takenuma, not Mune. Takenuma, Abandoned Mire. Abandoned Mire. Can't run Tatsunare. Like, if it didn't have the blue-green activation on the bottom, I might put it on the list and then see how many enchantments we actually wind up running, but... yeah, since we're not attacking the hand, Long Reach of Night's not going to have the effect that we want. Virus Beetle... we're already dead. Alright, so that was regular Kamigawa. Actually, there won't be anything for Kamigawa Commander, because that was white, blue, and red, green. Oh, right, there'll be, like, the Myosian, though, from the... there's the Myosian, and there might be one other card from the Commander cards that aren't in the decks, that are in, like, the set boosters and whatnot. Alright, so there's the Myosian. Remove its counter. Put onto the battlefield under your control all creature cards in all graveyards that were put there from anywhere this turn. And it's an 8-drop. And we have to cast it from our hand to give it the counter. Probably not. Yeah, I wasn't expecting to run the Myosian. There we go. There's like one other card. When it enters the battlefield, may sacrifice another creature you control. If you do, create a number of treasure tokens equal to that creature's power. Sacrifice X artifacts, return target creature card with power X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. X can't be 0. So, enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature, get treasure tokens equal to its power. So if the creature has, like, a base 0 power, but then gets, +1/+1 based on something else, it's possible to loop something with this guy for 3 mana. Like, if its base power is 0, we have X be 1 and sacrifice 1 treasure, and we would get back... we can still choose a creature with a power less than X, so we could still choose a 0 power creature, even though X can't be 0, so that would work. If its power is 4 or greater, we can just loop the same creature. Oh, wait, we can... if the thing were an artifact... I'm trying to think how many... we can't loop it because this is a comes into play ability on the Ruthless Technomancer to get the treasures. We do get to convert a creature into a pile of treasures the first time. I know there was talk when Ruthless Technomancer was spoiled that there was going to be some sort of infinite combo with it. But now it needs to be something that makes artifacts. It is power-based, so it would work with, what's her name? The, the 1/4, if we're using Ashnod's Altar, because she would fabricate 3, and we could sack the tokens to get colorless mana. Technically, if we had both altars and her and something else to get back that was making dudes, so like the Weaponcraft Enthusiast, we could endlessly loop all of them, and she would drain people out that way because we'd lose we'd lose 3 artifact creatures first. Sack 1 for 2 colorless, 1 for 2 colorless, 1 for black, and then sack her, and... oh no, we need to leave the 1 in play, so we sack 2 of them. It's not quite infinite, because the other artifact creatures aren't making, like, the Weaponcraft Enthusiast is only making 2 bodies, not 3, so eventually we'd run out of mana, but we could get pretty close to infinite that way. I suppose we add it to the list and consider it. It's also a way to turn one of our permanents into a whole bunch of permanents, so... that's at least worth considering. 4 black market connections should be. So, Ruthless Technomancer. Technomancer. Alright, and I think that's it then. We'll double check though to make sure. Alright, so that was Neon Dynasty. Kamigawa. Alright, it's like Champions Legend, or Champions of Kamigawa, Betrayers of Kamigawa, and Saviors of Kamigawa. I'm sitting here going, now why isn't the other thing here? Alright, so Cons is another multicolored set, so statistically speaking, we will not be running anything from here in the deck. But there will be a handful of black cards, and some of them might be worth considering. Another permanent enters the battlefield on your control. Each opponent each opponent mills a card. Raid, if he came into play and you didn't attack, you lose 4 life. Bloodsoaked Champion can't block. Raid, return Champion from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only if you attacked with a creature this turn. So that is another one of the we can get this guy back from the graveyard type cards. And he's relatively easy to set up. This is Blood-Soaked Champion. Unfortunately, he's not a zombie. Unfortunately, so far, the one other zombie besides the Gravecrawler is the one that requires us to have almost no cards in hand to bring back. There's tap target creature, or no, target creature can't attack or block. Doesn't actually tap them. No to these. Creature or Planeswalker, no. No. You control, get +X where X is its power. Empty the pits. Delve, make X 2/2 zombie token. So it's quad black. And so it's 6 mana to make 1. 8 mana to make 2, and so on. So we would need to be able to exile cards from our graveyard in order to make the X more palatable. Yeah, I don't think we need Empty the Pits. There's Grim Haruspex, though, so that one's probably gonna make it. Grim Haruspex. Gurmag Swiftwing. Creature with toughness 4 greater, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on it. This thing requires green. No to that guy. Our opponent discards a card. Creatures with counters have Death Touch. Murderous Cut. Delve, X, tap, exile X cards from your graveyard to give a creature -X/-X. Whenever a warrior you control deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 1 life. If you do, draw a card. Discards 2 cards and mills 2 cards. Or no, they discard 2 cards, I mill 2 cards. Remove X counters to give -X/-X. Death Touch and Morph. Delve. Lifelink. Delve. Whenever another creature dies, it gets counters. Throttle. Lugan's Nexus. Healing Kumar. Witness of the Ages. So, nope. Okay, so we found 2 cards from Cons. Which is not terrible for a gold set. Speaking of gold cards and terribleness. Alright. So no to that one. No to the carpet. Change colors, no. Alright, so what is the actual wording on it? At the beginning of your upkeep, if All Hallows Eve is exiled with a scream counter on it, remove a scream counter from it. If there are no more scream counters on it, put it into your graveyard, and each player returns all creatures from their graveyard to the battlefield. And it has 2 scream counters to work with. So, no. Yeah, I don't want a Living Death type effect, otherwise Twilight's Call and whatnot would be in our pile already. Do I want the Chains of Mephistopheles? One of the most hard to understand cards for most players. So if you would draw a card, except for the first card drawn in each of their draw steps, that player discards a card instead. If that player discards a card in this way, draw a card. If that player doesn't discard a card in this way, they mill a card. So you get your regular draw step as normal. Chains doesn't affect that. If they would draw any cards, any additional cards during their draw step, or any cards outside of their draw step, it becomes a rummage. It's a forced rummage. If that player can't rummage, like if they can't discard a card in order to draw a card, then before that card gets to their hand, it goes to the graveyard. So it's basically like a loot at that point with an empty hand. But you don't even get the madness triggers or whatnot. So that's how Chains of Mephistopheles works. So this stops opponents from drawing extra cards, but it would also affect us, and we do have a bunch of card draw. Like, Chains is way better if we're going to draw extra cards from things like Necropotence, where we're not actually drawing the cards, or if we have a bunch of cards that care about being in our graveyard, or Madness cards, because it is a rummage when we have cards, so if we discard a Madness card and then draw a card, we do get to do the Madness shenanigans. So yeah, I think I have enough card draw in the deck and want to be able to draw cards that Chains is not actually good. I didn't need to actually think about it though, because Chains is one of those cards that you almost never see between people not having it and how weird it is. That made me want to stop and see if this was the deck for it. But yeah, we draw too many cards off of other effects, I think, because I'm going to be running things like Phyrexian Arena in the deck. We might run Necropotence, but Chains doesn't interfere with Necropotence because you never actually draw from Necropotence, but we have things like I'm probably going to be running Grim Horror Specs and whatnot because that's really good when you're sacrificing tons of stuff, and I don't want to lose the extra cards. I don't think we want Greed, though. I think we have enough other cards that are doing extra card draw shenanigans. Hell's Caretaker is a bit too expensive, and being a 1/1 leaves it too vulnerable. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you may activate it to sacrifice a creature and return a... So it's a, what's its name? Recurring Nightmare, basically. But you can only activate the Hell's Caretaker during your upkeep. And it does tap him, and he is a 4-mana 1/1 on top of that. So all 3 of those things kind of conspire to stop it from being as potent as it could be. It is still a 4-mana 1/1 that lets you Recurring Nightmare every turn. Like, sack a creature, get another creature back. And if you have ways to untap him, you can loop creatures during your upkeep. But I think at 4 mana as a 1/1, it's probably still too weak. Horror of Horrors. No. No. Deals 2 damage to opponent for each white creature they control. Hilarious, but no. Don't need the Knowledge Vault. Don't need the Lesser Werewolf. Life Chisel. Ever casting an instant interrupt or enchantment spell? No. Marble Priest. Mirror Universe. Mirror Universe is mildly amusing with all of the life payments that we have going on. You know, just pick an opponent with a lot more life than us during our upkeep and swap life totals with them real quick. Nether Void. Now, there is a spell that works with all of our other prison cards. Do I want Nether Void? So Nether Void is whenever a player casts a spell, Nether Void counters that spell unless they pay an additional 3. So do we want the Nether Void? Maybe? It's certainly a very prison card to have. Let's go to Legend. Oh, not Commander Legends, the other Legends. And put Nether Void on our list. Oh, it's not Nether Void, it's Nether Void. Add that one to the list. That one should be a fun one. And by fun, I mean abjectly miserable. Yeah, Nether Void was one of those cards early on when I played Vintage that I found out about. When my opponent went first, played a bunch of Moxes, cast Nether Void, and now all of my spells cost like 7 mana. And I already didn't have a good Vintage deck to begin with back then. So now all of a sudden I'm just absolutely locked out of the game forever by Nether Void. And my opponent has like 5 mana to work with on turn 1. So good times. The Serpent Generator's way too expensive. No. Nether Void is an Enchant World, right? So it and the Abyss can't coexist? Yeah. So Enchant Worlds are this weird special type of enchantment that doesn't show up much. But what it means is that there can only be one Enchant World in play, and if a new one comes in, the other one goes out. They're functionally similar to the planes in Plane Chase, is the idea. Like, it becomes where you are fighting, so if you play a new one, you warp to that one, and the old one gets sent to the graveyard. So that's how Enchant Worlds work. But yeah, there aren't that many to begin with, and a lot of them aren't super playable. It didn't last very long. Like, Legends has a bunch of them. They showed up a couple of times in other sets after that, because, you know, back then Magic didn't have the whole, oh, this mechanic is confined to this set, and until we decide to bring it back to make it a theme in another set. Like, if it existed in Magic, it could just show up in any other set but that only lasted for like the first couple years of Magic before they started doing things like, hey, only Ice Age has snow-covered lands and snow-covered matters cards, but Cumulative Upkeep also got introduced there, and Cumulative Upkeep was on cards in like Mirage and Visions and Weatherlight, so it was probably that they just weren't in a cold climate that stopped them from using snow-covered lands like all the time from that point forward, and the fact that they would have to put them in the starter decks. So that way you would have a way to get them to use them, but yeah, they like for the longest time anything that was in Magic could show up at any point in time after that once it was introduced. So like gold cards get introduced in Legends and legendary cards, and those two things can both show up in other Magic sets. And while that sounds like, yes, of course they can, why would you even say that? You gotta remember that this was the early days of Magic, and you know what did stick and what didn't, and the circumstances for that. Like, after Legends, like, the Dark had 2 gold cards, and they had to spell out on the cards how gold cards worked, because they couldn't assume that you just had, like, the little rules insert card from the Legends packs that explain how gold cards work. Yeah, Legends wasn't a, like, core set, even though it was large enough to be one, compared to, like, the other expansion sets. Like, Arabian Nights only has, like, 70 cards or something in it. But, like, Legends has, like, 200 or something. So it was large enough to actually be, like, its own... It would have been large enough to be a core set type thing, like, the same way Ice Age and Mirage and whatnot were, like, the first set of a block. but all they had to explain the rules for gold cards and enchant worlds and legendary creatures and legendary permanents was this little rules insert card that came in like 1 in every 3 booster packs or something. So, and this was back before the internet was really a thing, so it's not like you could just go online and read up how these things worked. So yeah, a lot of things didn't necessarily guarantee that they were going to make it into the next set just because they were in a previous Magic set, but by the same token, nothing was locked into a single set, so if you wanted to, you could print more cards with those type of rules, and then just include them in, like, the next updated rulebook. You know, like the Ice Age rulebook would have... I forget if the Ice Age rulebook actually explains what Enchant Worlds are, but it might have, which is why Enchant Worlds could just show up again after that. But yeah, I don't know that we want the Abyss also. I guess not. Like, just killing one creature every turn is not with the other stuff that we're doing. We might want the Tabernacle, though. Like, we're already adding insanely expensive cards. So, the Tabernacle at the Pendrell Vale. At Pendrell Vale, not the Pendrell Vale. Pendrell... That ERL? Pendrell Vale? Looks like it. And 2 L's. Hang on, I need to blow up the card name. 2 L's. Pendrell Vale. Yeah, I can't really read it with the old text against the old card frame. So, Tabernacle of the Pendrell Vale gives all creatures an upkeep cost of 1, or you have to sacrifice them. So, the downside to the Tabernacle is that all of our token creatures would have an upkeep cost of 1 while this is in play. So, the reason to play the Tabernacle is because the opponents have enough creatures down where they won't be able... Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, do we actually want the Tabernacle? So, the way the Tabernacle works is that every creature has an upkeep cost of 1, and if the upkeep cost isn't paid, the creature is sacrificed. So, the Tabernacle, we play it, and everything, all the creatures in play have an upkeep cost of 1. What we can do, though, is we can stack, because we will control the Tabernacle's trigger, and the smokestacks. So we can force them to decide if they're paying for the creature first. So they can't just sacrifice the creature to the smokestack. They would have to pay the 1 first for that creature. Although, hang on, all creatures now... Does it give the creatures the ability? It gives the creatures the ability. Okay, so it's not Tabernacle that's the source of the ability, it's the creatures. So our thing will always go on top of the Tabernacle because it's active player, non-active player. So non-active players resolves first. Yeah, okay, never mind. Sorry, Tabernacle. I appreciate getting a reminder of how you're spelled, but yeah, that doesn't actually interact with smokestacks the way we need it to. Because the smokestack sacrifice effect is during each player's upkeep, we'll control the smokestack, but it will go on top of the Tabernacle upkeep cost. So the opponent can just sacrifice all the creatures they weren't planning on paying for. And it's not taxing them the way I want it to, basically. So yeah, we don't need the Tabernacle then. So that shaves however many $1,000 card the Tabernacle is off the list. Wretched, no. Yeah, I was going to put it on there because of that, but then I actually read the current wording on Tabernacle, and it is an ability granted to the creatures, not an ability of the Tabernacle. If the Tabernacle said at the beginning of each player's upkeep for each creature, that player pays 1 or sacrifices that creature, then we would be able to do it. Then the Tabernacle, we would control the trigger, and we could stack it above smokestack, and then they would have to decide if they were paying first, and then any creatures they didn't pay for wouldn't be available to sacrifice to the smokestack afterwards. But since it's the other way around, we just have to keep going. Removes First Strike and Swamp Walk. No, thank you. No, the Voodoo Doll. Walking Dead. Pro White. Damage done to wall by creatures with enchantments played on them is reduced to 0. Or you can just have this wall where damage dealt to is reduced to 0. Huh. I forgot Wall of Shadows was also immune to effects that normally target walls. It's like, no, it's not a physical wall, so you can't blow it up. That target only walls or abilities that can target only walls. Yep. Yeah, you can't Goblin Digging Team your way out of that one. Which I'm 100% sure is the flavor of that card. Alright, so that was Legends. Next up is Legions. Alright. His turn face up, target creature gets -3/-3. No. Turn face up, all creatures get -X/-X. Still probably not. Blood Celebrant, Corpse Harvester. Search your library for a zombie card and a swamp card. Reveal them, put them into your hand. It's kind of slow as a 5-drop and 2 activation, and then you have to be able to cast the zombie card afterwards. It is nice, though, that it is a zombie for our Gravecrawler, and it can tutor Gravecrawler and a swamp in order to, make sure you have enough mana to start casting your thing, like actually cast the Gravecrawler and start activating it. Give you one more swamp towards that. Is that good enough, though? It might be. So we can add it to the list, and we'll see. So this is Corpse Harvester. It depends on how many other zombies we wind up with. Listen, just because Magic does it in the older sets doesn't mean we have to go with lowercase h. I forget if newer Magic cards still have that templating. For some reason, there was no capital H. And I might have once known the reason for that, but I have forgotten it if I did. For the Sign of Darkness, no. Sacrifice a zombie, destroy target non-zombie creature, it can't be regenerated, only anytime you could play a sorcery, so no. No to the Dripping Dead. Sacrifice a goblin, destroy target land. No. No. Loses 1 life for each zombie in play. No. And then it returns it to the hand. So I don't think so for Ghastly Remains. Keep draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of zombies. We might be in the market for a Graveborn Muse. It is another zombie. Which also means that it counts itself. So we will always get to draw a card and lose a life. We do have to be careful that we don't have too many zombies in play. Although with our other things being able to sacrifice it, we can probably get it off of the table relatively easily if it's going to be a problem. Turn face up, return all zombie cards from all graveyards to owner's hands. Probably not. Non-zombies get -1/-1. I think we'll have too many non-zombies for that. I don't want to kill off all of my, pest tokens and whatnot. Or vampire tokens. Before I can feed them to my other effects. So I don't think we need Phage. I don't think we need Scion. Skin Thinner, no. Gives creatures -3/-3. 3/2 with Morph. Combat damage, destroy that creature. +X/+X, where X is the number of clerics. Exiles a card in a graveyard. Yeah, if Nezumi Grave Robber weren't around, or if I needed more graveyard hate, Withered Wretch. Super potent graveyard hate. For, targeted removal. Targeted graveyard removal. Yeah, target removal, not what I actually mean. What most people think of as target removal. Being able to selectively remove cards from the graveyard. It's probably one of the best cards for that, actually, only requiring colorless mana. Alright, so let's scroll back up here, and while it's loading that, we'll just add Demonic Tutor and, oops. Demonic Tutor. And Soul Ring. Because we're definitely playing both of those. Are we running anything else? 2 damage to anyone who puts a new land into play. No, don't think we need that. Black creatures get +1/+1. No, probably don't need Basalt Monolith. Would run Black Lotus if we were allowed to. Kinda glad we're not. Copper Tablet deals 1 damage to each player during their upkeep. No. 1 damage to land's controller during upkeep. Turns a non-swamp into a swamp. What is the exact word? Right, it's a mono artifact, so 2 tap, put a counter on this land, activate only during your upkeep. Yep, okay. We might wind up wanting Dark Ritual for this deck. Like, we might have enough stuff going on that can lock the opponent out of the game fast enough. Tap to destroy a land, pay 3 black during your upkeep, or Hordes becomes tapped and you lose a land of an opponent's choice. For the same reason I didn't want the minion of Leshrac, I am questionable about Demonic Hordes and its triple black upkeep cost while we're only slowing down one opponent by 1 land. Like, maybe we still want it. Dingus Egg is a 4-drop. Yeah, I got Dingus Egg and Unk of Mishra confused. I couldn't remember like which one cared about lands dying, and also the Dingus Egg is a 4-drop instead of a 2. So even if I might have been interested in that, I don't want to bother with it now. So yeah, we want Demonic Tutor. I don't know if we want Demonic Hordes, though. Or the minion. Like, I didn't really want the minion of Leshrac, and I'm thinking the Demonic Hordes probably for the same reason. 1, lose 1 life to an unblocked creature. Like, I'm pretty sure I would rather have Helldozer than either of these two. Because the Helldozer, A, has no upkeep cost, and B, once it gets going, it just nukes all non-basic lands that we want to. So, I don't think we care about hosing white decks specifically. If you want to run this deck and you have a bunch of players playing a bunch of white, like decks that run white in them, Gloom goes way up in value, but in a deck like this, but I don't think we need it. Howling Mine, not Winter Orb, Icy Manipulator. Sorry, I'm thinking Winter Orb in my head when we get to it, and here's an orb that has to do with something wintry, and that's Icy Manipulator. And my brain just went, oh, there's Winter Orb, and it's like, no, that's not brain, no. It's Icy Manipulator, stop it. We don't want our swamps to be 1/1s, because bad things will happen to them. I don't need Lord of the Pit. Don't think we need Mana Vault. Meekstone, probably not. Mind Twist, no. Moxen can't run. At least 3 creature cards, no. Navinral's Disc. Don't think we need Disc. We'll probably run O-Stone instead. Don't need Paralyzed, don't need Pestilence, don't need Plague Rats, Raise Dead, Royal Assassin, Sacrifice, a Zombie, Scavenging Ghoul, none of these. There's Soul Ring, which we already have. Terror, Hive, Time Vault. Holy Strength. No to all of these. All of Bone, Warp Artifact, Weakness, Will o' the Wisp, Winter Orb. So as long as Winter Orb is untapped, each player can only untap one land per turn. Which, combined with some of the other effects we have going on, can really choke the opponent out of mana sources, which is basically the entire purpose of Winter Orb. Like, you play it when it's terrible for everybody else and the least impactful for you. We are playing a mono black deck, so our primary means of keeping Winter Orb from wrecking us is going to be artifact mana sources. And the fact that we might be able to tap a swamp for like more than one mana with things like Nirkana Revenant. But yeah, Winter Orb, if we do wind up running it, is one of those cards. It's super annoying, first of all, and we probably want some way to tap it to stop ourselves, like, basically to give us back all of our mana while everybody else is stuck on lands. I don't think we need an Icy Manipulator for that, but we do need something that can tap it, or we can, if we can sacrifice it before we get to our untap step, especially if we can get it back. Yeah, if we're going to sacrifice it, we do need a way to get it back, though, is the issue. I scroll rapidly through all of these cards without looking at them. Alright, so let's go back. I'll consider the Winter Orb, though. We just need to figure out exactly what we're going to be doing with it. So that was Limited Edition Beta. On to Lorwyn. Let's see what we can find. Marry a Tree Folk. Can't block. Turns a Goblin. Tutors for a Goblin. Destroys a Tree Folk or Forest. Champion a Goblin. Whenever a Goblin you control deals combat damage to a player, you may put a 1/1 Black Goblin Rogue token into play. Obviously, this would grow way too out of hand if I could put multiples into play, but that's kind of what I was hoping for when I started reading the card. And it's like, I don't remember this card being excessively broken, so I doubt I'm going to be able to make 5 1/1s by connecting with Boggart Mob. That one has all the ability keywords. Death Render. We might be in the market for Death Render in this deck. Being able to sacrifice lots of creatures means that we can usually use Death Render to cheat one of the more expensive spells from our hand into play. For functionally 6 mana, and sometimes even less than that if we're getting mana back by sacrificing the creature. So Death Render is at least a consideration. So the benefit of a card like Dread is that the opponents have to remove it before attacking us, or it's going to kill the creatures that deal damage to us, and then that leaves them with less creatures to feed to our other effects. So it basically encourages other players to go elsewhere. I don't know that we're going to have enough room in the deck for a card like Dread, but... Or, the other one, No Mercy. But it's at least worth considering. Because of the way the deck works, it discourages players from attacking us a lot of the time. Into your graveyard, discard a card? No. During an opponent's turn, you may have that player lose 1 life, or each opponent lose 1 life, rather. -0, -2. 5, -5. Cards on top of our deck and draw 1. No to all of these. No. No Go to Howltooth Hollow. Go to Hunter. Go to the Witch. I think I'd rather have the other Lilianas over Vess. Goblins, Makeshift Mannequin. Marsh Flitter makes 2 other creatures as a 4-drop. They are all small, but it does make multiple other creatures, which allows it to go infinite with these same cards. And is a card that just makes multiple permanents for us to sacrifice, so I'll at least consider her. Probably not, because they're all so tiny, but... +3, -3... Pro Elves... So this is another card that messes with... Although it's at the end of their turn, so if we make them sacrifice it to anything else, then Nettlevine Blight just goes away, so yeah. Nope, I was about to say we can use this as a way to ruin one player by constantly triggering it, but that's not how the card's going to play out with all of our other effects, so that's going to be a no. Nope. Loses X life, return target creature card, or -X, or X target creatures gain fear. Nope. We put a 1/1 green elf creature token into play. If some mana ability, you may pay 2. A lot of our things I don't think are activated abilities. A lot of these are triggered abilities. So I don't know that we want Rings of Bright Hearth. Stalagmite. Remove an elf in your graveyard from the game. Scarred Vinebreeder gets +3/+3. Old Shriekmaw. Spiderwig Boggart. Nope. Ringleaf Drum. High Sneak. Thieving Sprite. Thorn of Amethyst. Non-creature spells cost 1 more. Yeah, I don't know that I was in the market for just straight up the Resistance Sphere. Thorn of Amethyst, on the other hand, we might be able to make work if enough of our things are creatures. Making everything cost 1 more when I'm trying to recur creatures constantly. Like I said, I want to be able to do the thing with the Gravecrawler where we keep sacking it and recasting it and gaining lots of triggers that way, so I'm more interested in that one. So the Thorn of Amethyst isn't affecting that one the way Sphere of Resistance would. But if we wind up with too many non-creature spells that would allow us to do combo-y things, then I might not want the Thorn in the deck anymore either. But at least the Thorn has a chance of making it in under those circumstances. And now we get to do a bunch of core sets. Oh, joy. At least with 2011 we'll get Grave Titan, and 2012 will give us our boots. No, destroy target tapped creature, first strike, swamp walk. Other zombies get +1/+1. Exile target creature card from a graveyard to get a 2/2. Makes sacrifice fodder, is a zombie itself, gives us a way to make more zombies. Do I want Cemetery Reaper? I might. This is M10. Yep. Cemetery. Nope, did it again. Cemetery Reaper. Child of Night, Coat of Arms, Consume Spirit. Yeah, I don't know that we want any actual Drain Lives for our deck. So Drain Life, Consume Spirit, and whatnot, Exsanguinate. How many things did we have that cared about life gain? Because if we have enough things that care about incidental life gain, like the Witch, I'm trying to remember if we had anything else that cared about life gain. Because Demon's Horn is pretty awful otherwise, but if it's triggering enough different things just by casting a single spell, although the Staff of the Death Magus would also trigger when we play a Swamp, so that might be even better. But yeah, if we have enough payoffs for life gain triggers, then Demon's Horn might be worth considering just because it sits there passively and gives us life whenever we do almost anything in the deck. Like, literally cast any of our spells, almost. Aside from, like, our Soul Ring and stuff. I can't imagine it's going to be good enough. I don't think we have enough Life Gain Matters cards that I've already selected. If we have enough, I'll come back and consider Demon's Horn. I'll remember it exists for that reason, but... And like I said, it might even be Staff of the Death Magus instead, just because that one also gains you life for Swamps coming into play, so it's even harder for us to not do anything that triggers it. Oh, that's Judge Skeletons. Gargoyle Castle, Gorgon's Flail, Haunting Echoes, Hypnotic Spectre, Kellinor Bats, Liliana again, Looming Shade, good old Megrum. Nightmare, Ornithopter, Pithing Needle, Platinum Angel. Basically no to all of these cards so far. Sign in Blood, Soul Bleed, Tendrils, Underworld Dreams, Nocturnus, Wall of Bone, Warpath Ghoul, Weakness. Sacrifice a creature other than the demon. Then each opponent loses life equal to that creature's power. If you can't, tap the demon and you lose 7 life. Oh no. Okay. That was M10. Go on to M11. Yeah, this should be where Grave Titan originally came from, so we will almost definitely be adding that one to the list. Makes 2 bodies, and then if it lives long enough to attack, makes 2 more, and so on. Seems kind of like what we would want to do with this deck. Blood Throne, Captivating Vampire, Corrupt, Dark Tutelage, which is just a less... What's its name? Dark Confidant. Deathmark. You may pay 6 life and sacrifice 3 black creatures, flying and trample. Nope. There he is. Good old Grave Titan. Grave Titan. Banshee, Jinxed Idol. I don't think I need any of the Jinxed cards. I have to go back and look at them to see what they are. Because we're making enough creatures to easily be able to give them away. And the opponents might not have... Although, if we give them away, we're giving them permanents. Never mind. We're giving them permanents, and then they have permanents to sacrifice or exile that they don't want to. Yeah, no, never mind. That's dumb, and it's a terrible idea, and we're moving on. Enchant creature. Enchant creature has at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature. When enchant creature is put into a graveyard, its controller chooses target creature, one of his or her opponent's control, return necrotic plague from the graveyard to the battlefield attached to that creature. So, yeah, probably not. If we're overtaxing the board, they're just going to put it on our stuff, and so we get to pick a different player each time. And if that thing doesn't make it to the point where then the beginning of your upkeep, okay, so it would still make it to that point most likely, but yeah, it's not going to do enough of what we want it to do, and it's usually going to find its way back onto our stuff when we're winning. So, excuse me. Obel, Triskelion, Viscera Seer. Probably not. So that was 2011. Now 2012. I think after the core sets I'll be done for today. I do have to do a couple other things before I go to work. At least I had some extra time, so when I started late, I still get a full stream's worth in. Under an opponent's control, you may have that player lose one life. No. Also, that's a reprint from, like, Alara block. Comes tap, destroy it. No. Of Call of the Grave, Cemetery Reaper. Nope. Moonblade. If it's a creature card, I get a 1/1. If it's a land card, I put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, I gain 2 life. I think so. Titan again. Creatures you control gain Intimidate. Monomania. Gains Death Touch. I don't think so. Reassembling Skeleton. I think this is the first time he ever showed up. Reassembling Skeleton, is this your very first time in Magic? Let's see. Oh, apparently we passed him in M11 and I didn't even see him. Alright, sorry, Reassembling Skeleton. I just glossed right over you. Skeleton. Yeah, my bad. I don't know why I didn't notice you before in the other set. Royal Assassin, Rune Scar Demon, Rusted Sentinel, Scepter, Sengir Vampire, Smallpox. This one, however, should be new, right? This was where Smallpox first showed up. Oh no, it's from Time Spiral. Okay, it wasn't in the M sets. I forgot that I was in Time Spiral though. That might make it, as each player loses a life, discards a card, sacks a creature in a land. Seems like it might be enough. Alright, Sundial is actually kind of interesting. So, what we can do with Sundial, when we have, I'm trying to type and think at the same time. When we have these stacks cards on the battlefield, we can put the triggers on the stack. So with Smokestacks itself, it's adding a counter and it's sacrificing the permanents are 2 separate abilities. So what we can technically do is put the trigger for us sacking underneath it, add the counter to it first, and then end our turn. And we would lose our draw step. We wouldn't get to attack or anything. We wouldn't be able to play lands or whatnot. But we also don't have to sacrifice anything to Sundial at that point. So we can basically just keep adding counters to it until it would destroy everything. Or even not add counters and just we don't have to sacrifice anything. And we keep letting it go to other players' turns. And keep chewing through all of their resources that way. So that is an option. So I'm going to add Sundial to our deck as one of the things that we can do. Because that amuses me. There's our Swiftfoot boots. Swiftfoot boots. Taste of Blood. So this one makes 1/1/1, and we would need the other 2 pieces to make 5 of them. It is 1 tap once it's in play, but I think we can do better than that without the other 2 pieces of the Empire. 1 tap make a dude is an okay thing, but it's not amazing, and we can do better than that. If we could get all 3 of them into play with any kind of consistency, then we would be making headway with that card. But that was M12, now we're on M13. Yeah, if we go through these fast enough, I should actually be able to do all of them before I have to stop. Because right now I have an hour before I have to go into work, but like I said, I want to do some other stuff before I leave. So we'll try to get through all of these quickly. Creature attacks you or planeswalker you control. That creature's controller loses 1 life. Drains 2. Has Exalted on it. Untap target artifact. I don't think we need the Clock of Omens. Also, I'm pretty sure that's a reprint from one of the original Mirrodin block. Revelation, no. Disciple of Bolus, I don't think so. No to these black exalted creatures. Essence Drain. Gem only gets a swamp for us. It's blue. Go to that guy. +1 gets a swamp. -3, target creature gets plus or minus based on the number of swamps. And emblem that says our swamps tap for extra mana. We're certainly going to have enough, swamps in our deck. I don't know that we're going to care, but this is Lily of Dark Realms, yeah. Liliana of Dark Realms. I mean, worst case scenario, she gets us swamps and distracts our opponents with either a card or a combat step that kills her. But, well, combat step is the worst case scenario. If we spend 4 mana to ramp 1 swamp and get an opponent to attack us that wasn't going to bother beforehand, that's kind of bad. Go to all of these so far. Don't care about the rings. Prize. Again, don't care about the servant. Do we want Staff of Nin? So Staff of Nin gives us an extra draw step. The ping ability works to kill off 1 toughness creatures. To reduce the number of things that players have to sacrifice to our stacks effects. I don't know if that's anywhere near good enough, other than the card draw. The card draw is obviously the better part of it. Pay 1 life, make a goat, sacrifice a creature, return our artifact card from our graveyard to our hand. Trading Post also lets us get back the smokestacks. And does a bunch of other things, it lets us, so we can sacrifice an artifact to draw a card, so we can sacrifice treasure tokens and whatnot to draw cards. And we can sacrifice creatures to get back artifacts from our graveyard. The other two modes, paying a life to make a goat does give us another way to make another permanent to sacrifice. It's even worse than the throne, though, because we're losing life to do that. But the other modes, I think, are so useful that it makes it way more of a consideration than the throne ever was going to be. Gains Defender and becomes a colorless artifact in addition to its other types. Yeah, don't think we need any of that. So, Magic 2013, Magic 2014. Oh, go ahead, search for it. It's okay, gather, you can look for the things. Order Shield, a Cursed Spirit now, Altar's Reap. Beginning of upkeep, if enchanted equipment is attached to a creature, destroy that creature. Fairy cast enchantment gives -2/-2. No. Search your library for a card named Festering Newt or Bubbling Cauldron. No. Corpse Hauler, Dark Favor. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. I think we have enough other cards similar to that I don't need that one. Also, it's harder to get rid of Dark Prophecy if we get to a point where we're losing too much life or drawing too many cards while we're looping our death triggers. So, just to make absolutely certain we don't inadvertently kill ourselves. Loses 1 life, we gain 1 life. Go to that one. Don't think we need that. Liliana reprint. Reverse, a 4/3. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and we make a 2/2. Probably too low impact. There's so many other ways we can make the tokens, and the discarding is not high priority. Penguin Bond, Sengir Vampire, Shadowborn Demon, Drivel. When do we sacrifice the demon? Beginning of our upkeep. So we could very easily wind up sacrificing it to other stuff. Alright, Staff of the Death Magus. Cast a black. It does restrict it to us casting black spells, but I think that's fine if we're also getting the life gain off the swamp. Strionic Resonator, I have more interest in. A lot of our things are triggered abilities, not activated, so Strionic Resonator. Especially the ones that we want to copy. That we wish we had more of. When it dies, you may pay 2 if you do return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So we have to have the 2 mana when it dies. Alright, so Tenacious Dead's probably not making it then. That one's a bit harder to A, guarantee, and B, Xanthid Necromancer or another human. Yeah, if we had more humans, Necromancer. Like, Xanthid Necromancer is actually kind of interesting with Nexus and the card conspiracy from Mercadian Masks. Because it's not non-token, it's another human. So if all of our creatures are humans, including our zombie tokens, then zombie tokens dying makes more zombie tokens while this guy is in play, and there's also Rotlung Reanimator, who is the same thing but for clerics. So I don't know if I want to jump through all those hoops without having enough humans and or clerics naturally in the deck. Like, I don't know if I want to dedicate more deck space to those cards to make them go infinite. It does go infinite, though. Like, if our zombie tokens are humans or are clerics when one of those is in play, then we just keep looping. Like, we sacrifice a zombie and we get another zombie. So, if we're not spending mana to sacrifice the things, we just have an infinite loop at that point and can get as many death triggers or whatever value out of sacrificing. I'll consider it, but we need to put all of those cards in for that particular setup to work. So I kind of want to see how many humans and or clerics we have naturally that would get us extra bodies from those cards before I commit all of that deck space to this combo. Also of note, if we have enough counters on something like Smokestack, this isn't going to work. Like, we would have to sacrifice more things. Like, we don't get the zombies individually in time to sacrifice to the Smokestack or anything. Like, we have to resolve all of Smokestack's ability first. So if there are too many counters on it, we can get into a position where, even though we have an infinite number of zombies, technically, we only have like 3 in play, so we can only feed 3 of them to it and get 3 back, and whatever excess things are on there have to get other permanent sacrificed in order to meet the requirements. So it doesn't work in that regard as far as having an infinite supply of creatures goes. Damage to target creature, so no. Your upkeep, if an opponent lost life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. No. Nope. Can't be regenerated. No. Bigger. Grind clock reprint. In Garrick's wake. Maybe. We might be in the market for something like this to remove a large number of permanents from our opponents. So that way they have to lose like lands and enchantments and whatnot. Draw cards unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. I think so. Don't need the sliver. Go to all of these. Top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. Stockpile. The stockpile is kind of fun, especially with things that make the cards in our hand zombies, so that way we can discard the creature if we don't need it at the time, draw a card, and get the zombie. I don't think we're going to have room for that, and I don't know that we're going to have enough zombies naturally. Like, obviously we would love to discard things like Gravecrawler to this, get the 2/2 zombie, and then just cast the Gravecrawler from the graveyard, but the opponent searches their library, they sacrifice a creature and lose 10 life. Whenever another creature dies, put a 1/1 counter on Nixilis. He's okay as a giant flying, trampling monstrosity that's also stopping our opponents from searching their decks. That being said, he's just a big dumb creature a lot of the time until he dies, and then players can just go back to searching anyway. Need Perilous Vault. Also, I'd rather destroy our stuff than exile our opponent's stuff if we're choosing between all of the stuff in play. Creatures you control. Need a Sliver in play to activate that, so probably not. Turn up to 3 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. He's so expensive, and we're taxing our own resources a lot with a lot of our other cards, so I don't think so for the soul. Stain Line, Chain Veil, Ulcerate, Make the Graves, Urborg. We're not making opponents discard cards often enough for Waste Not. Got the Sly Blade. Alright, so that just leaves Origins now. We'll do Origins too while we're at it, since it's functionally a core set. Then we'll save Conspiracy and Commander for the next time. Yeah, Origins was effectively M16. To that card. Archives. There's Blightcaster again. These. +2/+2 flying and sacrifice 2 other creatures to regenerate this creature. No. Creature you control. Dark Petition. Bridge Shaman. Demonic Pact. Exile 2 other creature cards from your graveyard. Return Despoiler of Souls from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, as long as opponents control no creatures, has indestructible. Whenever a creature card leaves an opponent's graveyard, you may discard a card. If you do, return Titan from graveyard to hand. Nope. All of these. Fleshbag Marauder. Foundry turns into 2/1/1s. These cards. Attacking elf you control gains Death Touch. Nope. Deals combat damage to a player. That player loses life equal to the number of creature cards in my graveyard. Not. No. No. Hangerback Walker. Does make a lot of bodies. Is an okay target for things like Scrap Trawler and whatnot, since it's always 0 in the graveyard. I suppose we can consider it. This is Hangerback Walker. Obliteration. Soul Herder. By another player. No. Languish, probably not. Her up so I can actually read her game text. Return target legendary or target non-legendary creature with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Where a creature dies, return to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Starts off at 3. She has 1/2/2 zombie after something dies. Another non-token creature you control dies. Exile Liliana, return to the battlefield, and make a 2/2 zombie. I think that's low enough impact that I don't need her. And it's too hard to get to the ultimate with her in a mono black deck, I think. Snare. Boarding. If 5 5/5 Black Demon. These. A creature dies, scry 1. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life only if there are 4 more creature cards in your graveyard. Equipped creature attacks. You may search your library for a basic land card. Might actually want Sword of the Animist to help us ramp and stay ahead. So I scrolled down, but we were on Origins. Didn't need to do that. Sword of the Animist. Animist? Yes. As opposed to Animast. Or Animist. Thornbow Archer attacks. They don't. Elf. Throwing Knife. Thoughts. Touch of Moonglove. Yep, that's about it. Alright, so that's going to do it for me today. We made it up through Origins. Save that. Alright, so thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. I think we're making really good progress with the deck. I do need to actually go back and add in all that text. So I'll probably be doing that at some point in time on Thursday, but yeah, it's going to do it for today. So I'll see you next time.